Watch this fight out.
Oh, that's what I was talking about. Bonk, bonk. Dead.
Back to back. So bigger than jumping into this platform here was your mid-fight positioning, and we're gonna go back and look at that.
I think the main problem that I have, at least that I've been, I mean, did you read my little spiel that I put in that
Yeah.
that paragraph? Like, I haven't played like real competitive since like season 3, so it's been a hot minute.
I feel
and
you.
like back then, I feel like I could be like, oh, in this situation, I play Anna. Oh, in this situation, I play Lucio. Or but like the game has changed so much since then that it's whenever I'm in a game, I just barely know what to pick for the team comp that we have, or really have an understanding of team comps in general. Because it's it's so different. I feel like I'm a little alienated. I'll get into a game and I'll be like, all right, I should play this character, and then I'll just kind of like suck at that, and then I've been trying to get better at that. And I'll be like, all right, in this situation, I'll play, and I think I'm picking the right character, but I'm not 100% sure. And then end up playing a character that I'm probably not super great on. And then and then you can kind of see it, especially in the Oasis game, that it's just visible confusion.
All right, so before even jumping into actual gameplay, let's talk about this comp design philosophy. So, quick question: looking at these comps, seeing these heroes running out of the gate, what made you lean towards Baptiste here?
I think that this was a couple days ago, so I don't really fully remember. But looking at this right now, the thing that comes to mind is like, I've been playing other heroes, and like I always seem to like just suck unless I'm playing Bap. So I was thinking, like, in this case, I was like, well, it's gonna be hard to hit the ball. It's gonna be hard to hit the Genji, but our Ana can kind of take care of that. I can focus on just like spam healing the Rhine or something to make sure that he's always up. I mean, like, I think I definitely end up switching depending on our team comp here. I'm sure of it. So, but that's kind of like, if I were to look at this right now, that's kind of what I'm thinking of. Try to like digest it right at this moment.
So big things that I encourage people to think about when they're designing a comp is, one, what is your job going to be for this composition? So even just looking at seeing you have an Ana as a pair, right away, I'm identifying that you probably don't need this much healing between these two heroes, regardless of what the rest of the team is even. So typically in a support line, you'll have one character doing the majority of the healing, which is usually either Ana or Baptiste, and then an additional support to provide some sort of utility, something like Lucio, something like Brigitte, something like maybe a Zenyatta for extra damage and stuff like that. So I'm not saying this is like a bad composition. It's a very safe composition, but you don't have that added utility that other heroes might bring.
Yeah, no defensive ultimate.
Yeah, exactly. Defensive ultimates, utility like speed or CC. Those are all really good checkboxes to hit when you're building a composition, and that doesn't even relate to whatever other heroes are on your team. So since you are playing at a relatively high level, like this is like a high diamond game, I believe. And you said you've reached,
I don't know, it's somewhere around there. Like when I first started playing this season, I placed like 34 or something. I climbed up to 36 something, and then like basically to that point, I was only playing Ana.
Gotcha.
And I had some really good games in Ana, but then I also had some really bad games in Ana, and so I started to try to like pick a better hero for the team or for the situation. And I don't think I have like the chops to really play those heroes, so I kind of sunk all the way down like 31 something. Right now I'm sitting around like, now I'm like playing a lot of Baptiste, and I'm around like 3,300. So that's kind of like, I played a lot this past weekend and climbed back from like 3,100 to 3,300, playing pretty much only Baptiste or Zen. And that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Okay.
I haven't really touched Ana.
Gotcha. Damn, tragic after being an Ana main. So once you reach this level of play, I'd say anywhere around diamond and above, you reached a point where it's no longer enough just to heal as a support, and you need to push the value of your heroes like further in order to have the biggest impact on the game and hopefully be enough to carry your team through these games. So again, this is a ton of healing, not much utility. And that's the biggest red flag I'm seeing. Like you said, Baptiste isn't great for healing these heroes and stuff like that. But overall, that would mean like you would want Ana or someone like Ana to be your main healer, and then you would pick something potentially like Zen, Lucio, Brigitte.
I believe eventually in this, the ball swapped to Zarya, and I swapped to Lucio, I think, at one point. But we should just watch the VOD and see what happens.
For sure. Yeah, I don't want to get too into it before anything even happens.
Sure.
But yeah, making sure you're not just being there just for extra healing, you're there because your hero brings something specific to the composition. Oh, it's unfortunate with your ball.
Oh, yeah, what happened? Did he like drop off the side or something?
I'm guessing it was going around coast. So, okay, nothing bad's happened so far.
Yeah, I took this angle because I was like, I'm just kind of like hella scared of snipers now.
Yeah.
Back in the day, there weren't as many snipers, I feel like, or I don't know, things are changed. I die a lot faster out in the open now, so I'm kind of a little
fair enough.
Fair enough. Around the side there.
So I like the safe pathing. One thing I'm going to point out right away though is your attention for about 3 to 5 seconds here as you're rotating is not on your team, and it literally can't be because there's a wall in between you guys, right?
Yeah, I feel like when I was watching this over, I'm like, ah, shit, that's like,
so
I'm gonna get dinged on.
This
and
is
like, while I'm doing it, I'm like,
avoid.
oh shit, please don't get hit. Okay.
So easy ways to avoid this. Okay. Yeah. So easy ways to avoid this is either make sure you're rotating with your team. Like if your team's going this way, this is absolutely fine and everyone's safe, right? Or you want to stay as safe as possible, but just play these chokes until you decide you have enough time to make this rotation, get all the way here before you need to heal again, sort of thing.
And so like just try to like find cover while still within line of sight.
Yeah.
Maintain at all
Basically,
times.
you're doing a rotation when you should be looking for uptime for your healing. And because you're rotating during this time, luckily, like I said, you have a ton of healing, so it's not like a lot of damage went by, but if someone got hooked during that time and someone's about to, like right here, again, your focus is on reloading and staying in cover instead of potentially being there to throw a lamp to save your Ana and enable some aggression from your Ryan. So making sure you're ready, like, and good to go during your uptime moments, and then using your downtime to make these sort of rotations, take some time to hide and cover and reload and stuff like that. I'll give it to you that your team is a little discoordinated here. I mean, ball jumping off the map and this sort of desynced team comp doesn't help, but you need to focus on when your team's fighting and when you need to be ready to heal, use resources whenever appropriate. Otherwise, these little desyncs start happening, and the more these things happen, the harder and harder the game becomes.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is looking like a wipe.
And I remember thinking right at this moment, if I have to use lamp to get out, I probably should just die.
Oof.
Man, I just die anyway.
I would argue if you can live there, is ideal. But obviously, against a hero like Hog in that situation, there's not much you can do without a front line. So maybe you're right. Not a huge deal, though. So coming in here. Again, it's a little awkward that your team's sort of already being aggressed on before you're even back. A little bit of communication can go a long way here, like wait for me to come back, I'm still spawning, stuff like that. Or I died late, give me 5 seconds, can go a long way. Small thing, but it just means none of this.
Yeah, I think I need to get better at that. I'm not vocal enough with like, wait for me, I'm a healer.
Yeah, you are an important part of this composition, so don't be afraid to ask for time or resources when you need them. So your Ana goes down, but we are in a favorable situation here. Oh no. So, 2 things. I'm going to fly over for this real quick. I want to look at your attention just as you're sort of pathing through here. So the path basically went from choke, catching up with the Rhine, and then getting into the bunker. During this entire time...
on top first. But yeah.
Oh, yeah. But, like, this is the general pathing. So this entire time you're moving through here, your crosshair was, like, on the Rhine or around the Rhine the entire time from what I saw. And I think you're falling into a bit of a trap where you're focusing too much on healing, and it's narrowing your view to threats around you like this Genji. Like, obviously, you knew the Genji was there and you wanted to get away from him, but I don't even think he was that big of a threat that you needed to hide and cover, not squeeze like your resource like you could have lamped sooner for yourself, because you already had an advantage during this fight. So let's just watch it over from third person to get an idea of what's going on. So we trade on a Zarya. You're catching up with the team here. Again, at this point in time, you're not even looking at the Genji. You don't know that your Genji's dueling this Genji because your crosshair is just on the Rhine.
Yep.
Your Genji ends up losing the duel. Again, GG easy. Let's hide chat real quick.
You want to know what that Genji said after this altercation?
He probably got mad about no healing or why didn't you turn, all that stuff.
He said if we lose this fight, I blame you.
And again, sole focus on the Rhine. I don't even think you even considered left clicking this Genji, where at this range, at this HP, he's one left click away, right?
Yeah, and another thing that I've been kind of struggling with is like not focusing enough on like the rotation we did earlier and how I didn't see the Rhine for a second. I just kind of get scared of Like, oh, if I'm not looking at my tank, they're gonna die. I have to be there like really quickly, and that seems to be like something that ends up happening to me a lot if I lamp too late or I don't have my eyes on my tanks. So, like I look away for a second to go heal a DPS, and I look back and they're dead. So that's kind of like I think that's something I definitely need to work on is having my head on a swivel. Because I definitely can kind of see in this gameplay that I definitely get tunneled.
So the biggest thing I will point out is during times of rotation, during times of movement, that's when you need to be the most aware. Because if you're only looking in the direction you're walking, basically, you're opening yourselves up to not only flank heroes, but even just like someone who might be in a position you're not ready for. Like a hog that might have been here will just hook you as you're walking onto point, or a soldier that's on the high ground up here is just going to burn you down if you're just walking through open space. So when you're moving, it's good you're moving with purpose. You're trying to catch up with your team. You're trying to get this positioning on point so you can be safe. But this is the dangerous part of that movement, and that's when you need to be the most aware. Second thing I want to bring up is how important damage is to Baptiste's kit. And it seems to me, I know it's pretty early in the map, but it seems to me already that you're tunneling on healing more than anything. Like I mentioned with this composition, there's a ton of healing, and you're going to need to bring more than just healing in order to be a major factor in these team fights. So weaving in damage whenever you can, moving between left and right clicks. A good thing to identify was during this rotation, like I said, you were at a numbers advantage. You had the Zarya kill, which is bigger than your Ana kill because Ana's going to be back sooner. And you had an opportunity to turn this fight for your Genji if you just weaved in a bit of damage, weaved in one right click on the Genji there. Those are situations you should be looking to squeeze more value for yourself and not just tunneling on keeping your team up and stuff like that. Because the way you press advantages is, yes, by staying alive, obviously, and keeping everyone alive, but by using your resources together, and finding an initial advantage means you can push for more and more and more by keeping your foot on the gas kind of thing.
Yep.
And of course, I gotta say it, should have lamped yourself here. No other threats existed
I think that was
in the
me
fight.
being greedy.
Yeah,
Sure.
just a little bit.
Like, I got 80 health. I don't think you'll kill me. Oh, I'm dead.
Yeah, and honestly,
kind of my thought process.
I think that decision would have been correct if you had seen how low the Genji was. Like, you could have saved lamp there if you just gave a half a second attention to the Genji and then threw a left click in him. He didn't have deflect from the duel. He was all inning on you, and you're sort of in the middle of your team. Like, you should have been safe here, but your attention was so focused on these tanks, so focused on your allied health bars, that I think you lost focus on yourself and the value you could bring individually. But let's keep watching. Hope that wasn't too much all at once.
No, I think what you're saying makes sense. It's something that I've watched through these before, trying to like, like tapes. Trying to like find like, oh, I could have done something different there. It's like, yeah, I felt like I was being too tunneled. Yeah, hopefully at some point I left click and right click. Press you a little bit.
Yeah,
I'm sure that I've done it in Sun games. So.
Yeah, you haven't played much since like season 1 to 3. You said, right? So Baptise must be a relatively new hero.
I've put a bunch of hours into quick play. Okay. That's my problem, is that I kind of get like ladder anxiety a bit, and then I'll be like, I don't feel like putting in the stress of playing competitive. I'll just play some quick play, and then I end up playing quick play for like 6 hours instead of just like trying to actually play the real game and getting better at that.
So looking at this reaction to the Nano Blade, not too much I can blame you for, honestly. Looking at the spread your team had before the Blade came out, this is not an ideal position to be in. Ideally, obviously, you, Ana, McCree, and Ryan, maybe even Genji, unless he's setting up a flank, are all moving together. But being this spread is something you want to avoid. And this is, again, something you can touch up with communication, either from you or your Ryan speaking up about where you're moving to. Can help a lot. So for example, say I want to take left side, like before we even hit the choke, like when your team's still like behind the choke, say let's move in left side. Then everyone has the same idea. Ana and Genji aren't trying to like get poke over here. McCree's not walking up alone. You're not disconnected from the tank line, so that when this blade comes out, or any type of engage for that matter, when some sort of aggression comes out, your resources, your AoE healing, your shift, and your lamp get the most value possible and deny as much as possible from the enemy engage. But because you're so split, we kind of see what happens. Your Genji gets counterbladed, your Ana goes down, you lamp yourself, which is good, but at this point it's too much, or too little too late, I should say.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's not just like, you didn't misplay that really, but you could have put more effort in the pre-fight to make sure this situation didn't get as much value as it did from the enemy.
Yeah.
So what's going through your head when it comes to Baptiste Ultimate, the garage door, as they say?
Garage door. I haven't heard that one.
Because it's
like
people used to call it the window, but now it's a garage door because it's so big.
Oh, okay. Yeah, two car garage door.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. I can see it. Yeah, I mean, like, you know, either my initial thought is if we make it around one of the sides of this middle building here, throw it down at an angle, that way we can hit like both the left and the front, and then just like try to tap somebody, or to you know, focus heal the healers.
So I love this ultimate. Let's hide these real quick. Let's talk exactly why this is good, just to make sure you're checking all the right boxes. So one, the angle of attack is huge. You're hitting basically the entire point, anyone hiding in here. You're forcing them off the point, which is where you want to be as attackers. You want to cap the point so you can win the map. And you've got members with you that can benefit from it. So not only do you have a Rhine shield protecting you, allowing you to take shots, you have a McCree with you. Genji, I mean, sort of, he benefits. But these two members, McCree and Reinhardt, are your biggest candidates. So the fact that you move together, you set up an angle that benefited both of them, that benefits your attack on the point is good. And like I said, you have more than just yourself that can use this. Sometimes it's fine to window or garage door just for yourself, but the way you use this with your team, I think, is really, really good. Obviously, they have Transcendence to deal with it, but I think that's a fine trade. I would say Transcendence is a much more valuable ultimate to get out. Yeah, so, really good setup. And now we're safe in our little cubby. Good lamp. Good repositioning. So yeah, obviously this death is not ideal, but I think your movement and your planning here was overall good. Let me just watch it one more time, third person to see.
I feel like probably 50% of the time I'll be like, I'm in danger, and then I'll exo boots out, and then I'll either die or I'll be like, I outplayed that guy so hard.
Yeah. I mean, something you'll see even at like the pro level people doing is just having exo boots charged just all the time. If you're not actively like moving from point A to point B, if you're just standing behind a shield like this situation, you're just constantly charging crouch so that if you need to, you can jump up.
Yeah, I try to remember that. I'm like, always keep your charge boots, you know, but then like I end up tunneling and I totally forget. And then I end up, there's probably a point in this map where I like hit the ceiling a couple times and just like have a Reinhardt like looking at me swinging his hammer while I keep messing up my boots.
It happens. The biggest thing to remember when deciding to commit to a jump, because it is a bit of a commitment, it makes you a predictable jump arc, it makes you potentially vulnerable and separated from your team, is what your current threats are. So for example, when dealing with this Genji, let's just watch this from third person again, seeing that Genji wants to focus you, wants to get you down. You force up from the Zarya, but then the Genji is the real threat and he's the one that takes you down. So I don't think there's much more you could have done. Your team is pretty much limited to fighting on the point. You could have played safer by maybe jumping up here instead and not committing to going in here, but I can't fault you too much based on how the flow of the fight was going. The biggest thing I will say for future fights is don't jump when you have active threats that can punish the jump. And that will look like either flankers and mobile heroes like Genji, Tracer, Sombra, Doomfist, whatever, Ball, that can basically isolate you by the fact that you separated yourself from the team. Or hit scan members like McCree or Soldier that are also in line of sight to your position.
The amount of times I've gotten killed by an Ashe.
Because
you know, extra booting around.
Yeah, even just like normal jumps are very predictable to hit scan players these days. So the huge exo boot jump becomes very predictable. Luckily, like I said, Soldier's not here, but that's something you need to watch out for in the future. Yeah. If you were to play this absolutely perfectly, you could have maybe stayed on the ground a bit more, identified the Zarya behind you, and then maybe tried to take this jump instead, and then use your lamp to duel the Genji and stay away from Zarya.
Did I just like walk forward onto point, like once I saw the Ryan going?
Yeah, your team was aggressing onto point.
Yeah.
Let's fast forward a little bit.
That's the other thing I tend to do is just like walk forward when I don't have to.
So yeah, again, right here, you could be moving up with your ball to go duel that Genji. We haven't identified the Zarya until it's basically too late and she's right on top of you. The ball coming in also doesn't help. So yeah, if you were up here with your ball right now, you'd be real comfy up here.
Yep.
And that's, again, keeping your head on a swivel, keeping a track on not only what your team is doing and, in this case, what your Reinhardt is doing. Like I said, that's kind of where your attention has been most of the fight. But where the active threats from the enemy here are, in this case, Zarya and Ball coming in from behind you, and how you can react to that. But from this situation on, I think you did everything you could. Is the team going to pull this one out? It looks like they are. And yeah, opening this fight up with the window built a ton of space, basically covered up a few mistakes and a few positional errors, from your team. But I like that window a lot, and the biggest thing so far from any of these fights has just been that awareness.
Mm-hmm.
All right, point B. Everyone's favorite on 2CP.
Mm-hmm.
Again, small thing here could be touching up on that communication to make sure teams aren't over-aggressing. It looks like you won't get punished, though, so that's good. Okay, Genji, go off. Yeah, not a lot to say here. Moving to point like this. Okay, you're
I remember
good.
this. Oh, this was...
Uh-oh. What's
You're
about
gonna
to
laugh
happen?
at this. I'm not gonna tell you.
So right now, just while we're talking about exo boots and movement, you've moved from the point to help cap and help get the timer up and help their respawns. You've jumped up here, you've fallen back to the point, you've ran over here, you've jumped back up here, and now it looks like you're jumping back down.
Well, I went up right because I was like, I should be on high ground for this fight because I don't want to get, it's easier to get down than it is up. And then like, I remember thinking, wait, no, I should go on the left high ground because that'll be better for. I'll be able to see more threats coming in. I won't get like flanked on the right side.
Yep.
So that's kind of why I do this jiggle movement. I was like thinking in the moment, like I should be on high ground. Wait, not this high ground, the other high ground.
So yeah, the biggest thing here is this is taking away from any potential healing and damage uptime you're doing. So for example, helping you burn down targets that the team's focusing, helping you keep everyone topped up. Not that it really matters right now. Everyone's healthy. People are stumbling one by one. But in a tighter fight, this is going to be you not maximizing your individual value. So yeah, ideally identify this space faster, jump up here right away, and then just use this cover when you need, use it for a lamp if you get nano bladed or something, drop back down and jump back up to here. But this sort of like jumping all around is what you want to avoid. You want to get to where you're going and stay there and plant yourself for a little bit so that you can focus on what you need to be doing, which is healing and doing damage and using your cooldowns when they're needed. Yep. Oh no.
This is
I see what you're going to. Okay. Well,
so I see the nano blade go out, and I tried to toss it on my team, but it got yoinked from me.
I guess maybe that's one argument for this side.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was like. Now I'm not going to go there ever again.
Yeah.
Because of this one time.
That's
if you
tragic.
Look, you can see it just sailing away down.
I mean, obviously, that's a mistake. That's just a bit of an input error more than anything. It happens. I can't fault you too much, but biggest thing,
I remember thinking at this point, like, what happened to my lamp? I went to go look at it in the replay, and I was like,
it's just not on your mind when you're focusing like with what's actually going on, of course. So yeah, again, biggest thing though is just during that downtime when you're setting up for their retake, just waste as little time as possible. Make sure you're heavily focused on when the fight actually starts and you're not worried about repositioning mid-fight too much and stuff like that. And the way you accomplish that is by getting where you need to be and setting up there. Alright, talk to me about this window. Obviously, we're going to be fighting on point. We're about to cap. We've got mines down already. What made you feel the window was going to be good here, or made you feel like you needed to put it down here?
I feel like mostly, I guess at this point, I was like, I should use my window. And I used my window.
Game's about to end. I've still got an ultimate. Let's throw it out.
Yeah, let's we're on point. We have everybody alive. I want to push this. I want to put down the window in case, if anybody even peeks out for a little bit, I can hopefully just tap them back into behind cover and try to. And then that way, if my tanks are brawling, I could just spam heal them.
So, I'm gonna throw out two possible scenarios that I think might have been better. Number one, God, this beeping. I don't think I can do anything about it though. Number one, think of your positioning.
Am I supposed to be hearing audio, by the way?
Oh, you can't hear audio over the stream?
No, I'm not hearing the audio. Do I have to change something?
It's probably just my Discord settings, honestly. It's not too big of a deal. Do you feel like you've been missing out on much?
No, I've heard all these sounds before.
Okay, well, at least you don't hear the beeping from the point being capped. Yeah. So number one, think about your positioning. Do you want to stay here during the fight as you're capping the point? Probably not. You probably want to get back up here or back up here like we talked about. You probably want to be using these high grounds. You probably want to be in a choke like this, maybe at best. But staying out in the open here, this is how the enemy potentially turns the fight. If their Genji rolls out this way or rolls out this way and gets on top of you, you are on the ground and you are behind your team who's going to be fighting on the point. So alternative number one, you jump up here and you just window for yourself because people are already fighting on point. The best you can do is add to your own damage and healing. There's not like a ton of like burst flowing through that's going to be important. You're just making yourself a bigger threat than you already are on this high ground. So that's option number one. Option number two, throwing it right on point. In all likelihood, your team members, I should say, as in your Ryan and your McCree, the ones who can most benefit from this, are not going to back up to go shoot through it. They're going to be fighting on point. They're going to be focusing members like ball down one at a time. So having it right on point, either like this or like this, so that they have an easier job manipulating it. They can even like, I don't want to call it a shield dance, but like, you know how Winston's will sort of like move back and forth around it. They can reposition themselves they can always be focusing this ball as he's rolling around the thing. Ryan can always reposition to throw a fire strike through it and that kind of thing.
At this point, I'm the only one using it.
Yeah. And again, since you're going to be the only one using it anyway, give yourself a better position or put it in a position where it's a lot easier for your team to use it in the mid fight.
Gotcha.
Pretty small thing, but that's how you're going to get like a little extra value out of this ultimate.
Right.
So yeah, you can see McCree, he's even like holding back, like he wants to use it, but then he was also thinking, oh, I want to be on point so I can shoot this angle and shoot this angle at the same time.
True.
And again, staying on the ground here, got you picked off by Genji. It doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, but at higher and higher levels, those small advantages will quickly snowball into big advantages for the enemy team. So avoiding that at all costs is good. But yeah, overall, the general theme so far has just been that awareness and a little micromanaging of things and positioning and cooldowns to clean things up a little. But I'm liking what I'm seeing so far.
Good.
Any questions about anything?
Just trying to like note down like the points that we've kind of brought up as like kind of awareness, try to keep my head on a swivel and like kind of get more information for myself. And then try to like if I'm playing a point like 2CP, want to like make sure my ult has usage more like for everyone on the team, or if it's a selfish window, trying to be at a better position.
Yes, perfect.
Okay.
All right, so
cool, yeah.
we're on Lucio on defense. Any Lucio specific questions or anything you want to cover before we jump into it?
The way I play Lucio is not good. I know that's not a question, but like that's like I just don't know where to start. Is kind of what I'm getting at.
Well, step one is admittance, so good job. So generally, like I said, we have a composition here that makes a little more sense when it comes to our backline. We have a main healer that's going to be pumping out most of the healing. They've got a powerful ultimate they can build with healing, all that stuff. They can hit everyone on the team. And you're here more for utility than you are for just flat healing. I think if you're ever picking Lucio for just flat healing, you're making a pretty big mistake. But what you do bring is speed, meaning tighter execution on engages if you want to like rush into somewhere or back out of somewhere.
My thought process was, now that we have Ryan Zarya, I want to like speed boost and like kill their squishies because they were running Ana, Zen, and also to beat the Blade whenever the Blade comes out and if I have beat for it.
Yeah. Good stuff. Yeah, adding a defensive ultimate to this whole rotation is perfect. The only other part of Lucio kit I want to talk about is your boop. And I would argue that's like the biggest part of playing Lucio in many cases, even bigger than his speed boost. So your boop is going to be used primarily for keeping yourself and your other backline members, your McCree and your Ana, safe from engaging members like these two dive tanks, like the Genji, who might be trying to get on you. So making sure you're saving boop for key moments is going to be a big part, but also finding opportunities to use it aggressively. So when you have advantage or when your team is engaging, you can look for ways to get inside an enemy team, boop people around, split them up, and make them easier targets.
Gotcha.
But yeah, that's just Lucio in a nutshell. Let's watch and see what actually happens.
I don't think I even want to watch. I think I remember seeing like tanks kind of split out.
So this is already an awkward position to be in, and not by any fault of your own, but I just hate this room as defense, but I won't get into that. One thing you can also add to your kit as important for Lucio is your mobility. So you can get around the map like no other support can, not even like Baptiste. You can move around faster than anyone else. You can move up to high ground very, very easily by just wall riding here, like pseudo double jumping and stuff like that. So one of the other parts of your kit that I forgot to mention was adding scouting to your list of important factors for picking Lucio. So in situations like this, where the team's gotten in, you should be looking for opportunities to get angles to not only throw some poke damage, build up a little bit of ultimate charge, but scout out where the enemy team's moving through. So for example, right now it seems like they're just moving straight to point and they're looking to dive. But if they're doing anything like splitting, if they're doing anything like moving to high ground, your team needs to know that so that they can take more space back. Because the more space you give up as a more ground-based team like this, like Ryan Zarya versus Ball Winston alone, for example, the more space you give up means the harder it's going to be to retake that space. And the best opportunities to retake that space are going to be when enemy teams sort of don't move together and sort of split their focus, because as long as you guys are together, you are a very scary team to fight. So for example, if Winston's moving here to point while McCree and someone else is going this high ground, you need to be pushing that Winston. If Genji and someone else are looking to take this flank to get poke damage while the rest of the team is going around here, you need to push that Genji out. Because that's how your team finds advantages, by using your shorter range and your speed to highlight those moments. And that all starts with scouting. And that's probably going to sound like a lot, but something you should be looking to do as Lucio is use that speed to your advantage, use that mobility to your advantage. And in this matchup, which I would say is technically a losing matchup against these mobile heroes, you need to find those opportunities to press any advantage you can find. But let's get back into things. We don't get punished, obviously, but we've given up a lot of space. They're surrounding us on point. And right here, this is where your boop would be so good, right?
Yeah.
Mobility cooldowns have been used by Winston and Genji to get on your backline, Ana. And if you were to boop this Winston, like not off the map, but even if you just booped him down here, it's 5 more seconds he's not on your Ana until his jump comes back on. Same with Genji. If you boop him off, it's a bit of damage on him, which might make him think twice, and he needs to either commit another dash or wait for dash to come back, or commit time wall climbing, which he probably won't want to do until Winston has jump again. All these things add up. So, number one, I didn't even notice that from your I didn't even notice this from your POV, but I didn't even know Ana was playing up here, or McCree for this matter. McCree's just rotating now. So you need to be aware of where your squishier members are going to be playing, because they're likely the ones that are going to need the most help when it comes to mobility and peeling from your boop. So again, another awareness thing. And that's just sort of like baseline your job as Lucio in this kind of composition. It's not the most fun job, but it is your most effective position.
Yeah, my number one priority that I was thinking of at this point was to I need to speed boost my tanks so they can run at somebody.
Yeah, and
that's kind of what they're doing.
So I'm going to throw out a bit of a sort of advanced concept, but there's going to be times where you're posturing to go aggressive and times where you need to posture more defensively. And on defense, as you might expect, your default will generally be to posture defensively until the enemy overextends or splits up or does something wrong. So in this case, when your team was all back here, all in this mega room, that's posturing defensively in a nutshell. They're not overextending. They're not looking to go on anyone. But the time that Winston goes in, that's when your Ryan Zarya are looking to go aggressive. So by starting posturing defensively, say you, McCree, and Ana were all up here, all 3 of you, and then Winston jumps you, you just immediately boop the Winston off, or you boop the Genji back. Your Ana's immediately safe, if not getting a kill by adding in a flashbang onto Genji or Winston something. Your backline's super safe. You maybe turn that into advantage for yourself, and then you can use your speed boost to go push an advantage, because they've committed to something, in this case overextending, because these members can't do anything about the aggression going on over here. So you kind of do 2 jobs as Lucio. You posture defensively to deny this aggression, and then you use that denied aggression as an excuse to go aggressive yourself.
Gotcha.
And yet, like I said, this is a bit of an advanced concept, and this is something that typically only applies to either higher level rank play or coordinated team play. But as Lucio specifically, these are the situations which you need to be most aware of. How you can stop enemy aggression and turn it into your own chance to go aggressive.
Yeah, I was just thinking about I need to find the right time to speed boost my tanks. That's
if you're just always thinking about when to go in, you're going to open yourself up to dives like this and you're on to dying. And you might even force engages that aren't meant to be. Like if you're all the way over here, your Ryan's holding shield, and teams are just over here touching the point, and you decide to speed all the way across point, this is like a super long distance to cover. They're just going to kite it back, and you're just going to split your team even more, where the members back here are going to be even more split from the members up here. And it just opens them up to even harder dives. So again, bit of an advanced concept, won't apply to every single one of your ranked games, but it's a really good situation to be aware of as Lucio. This is generally why Lucio isn't played very much in ranked too, because the advantages he finds are pretty niche. And I mean, outside of sound barrier, he doesn't bring a very clear value to many ranked teams because discoordination is sort of par for the course in ranked.
That's true.
So people usually favor a hero like Brig, who just can always posture defensively and then doesn't have the speed boost, but can sometimes catch up to the front line to help this aggression.
Yeah, I was going to probably mention at one point is that I haven't played enough Brig, and I think I probably should be, because there's some games where I feel like I'm just getting farmed by the enemy Doomfist or the enemy Genji, and then like I'll swap to Brig, but then like I'll like be doing better. Like I don't die, but like I also don't feel like I'm bringing as much value as I should be as Brigitte.
Hey, don't underestimate the value of not dying. Just
passively
existing as any hero.
Throw armor packs out.
Yeah, it's a lot better than being dead.
Yeah, exactly. Better than being dead.
All right, so let's keep watching. I feel like I've talked enough about this.
I hit speed boost because I thought we're going to go in on their squishes.
Yeah, and again, you were right to do that because your tanks were moving aggressively. It's just at this point, it was too late, and you had already gone down a man, so you're already at disadvantage. And basically, like the first second and a half of speed boost is where you need to find the advantage. Because if you don't find it by then, like I said, if you're trying to cross this huge distance and you're spending 2 seconds of the speed boost just getting over here, they're going to see that coming and they're just going to back up. So like typically you'll be like waiting at corners or at choke points, and then as soon as enemy teams come close, then you hit the speed boost to go aggressive and you roll over them. But that doesn't always present itself, and there's so many factors that go into it that you can't only posture to go aggressive. You need to also worry about being defensive, especially against teams like this with dive members. So yeah, there's a lot to keep track of as Lucio. It's not an easy hero to play. It's not an easy role to play in a team. So that was actually really good. I wish I would have seen you stay on speed a little longer. So you got a kill on this ball who overextended. Huge advantage. And then you use that to find some aggressive space of your own, because your team composition is so much less mobile than the enemy team. Any opportunity you get to retake space, you need to push it. So you sped out the door. People got this angle. They're getting an angle on the Ana. This is all really good aggression. But then you sort of second guess yourself and you swap back to healing and you turn around here. So what I would have liked to see here, let's just go back 5 seconds. So yeah, right here, your tank line was stable enough. They're not full health, but they're stable enough with like shield and bubbles that there's no active threats on them right now. I think we'll just keep going in third person so you can get a better macro understanding here. The ball goes down. Ryan goes down too. Genji uses dash to try and get out. Right now, look how grouped you are. Everyone will benefit from your aura. Throw on the speed here. Amp speed out the door here. Kill on the Genji. We can snowball this even further if we just keep wrapping around. Again, this distance is too long, but we can sort of trap these members in here because the only other option they have is moving to point, and then they're even more exposed. But we second guess ourselves a little bit here. I get that you're peeling for the Zarya, and that's good, but I think even just keeping speed on, boop this monkey away, keep your focus on moving aggressively. Because we need to retake space here. If we just trade kills back and forth, eventually their spawn advantage is going to win them the point. So we need to get more of an advantage here based on them overextending than just the one kill. And yeah, look at that boop. It was perfect. And now Zarya is basically not in danger. She should even get this kill on the Winston if she plays it right. And actually, yeah, so this worked out really well, but you could have made it smoother as the Lucio. You could have kept these groups more focused by giving them more speed and more resources to commit over here. And you could have kept your Zarya more focused in following that up as well instead of worrying about the monkey just by giving her speed and the boop, which you did land.
Cool.
So yeah, overall not bad. But another game might have ended up differently. You never know.
Yeah.
So everything you can do to make things a little bit smoother for your team is sort of your job as Lucio as well. Small thing here. I'd like to see you going back to Taxi or Reinhardt. You know what I mean by that? By taxing?
Yeah,
okay.
I've done that before.
Okay.
I guess I didn't think about it here.
Yeah, not a huge deal. Just
there might
another...
be. I think there's a time on this map where I do it.
Okay, yeah, just another part of your tool belt as Lucio. Little things to make things easier and get your team ready for the next. So, all right, good. I'm glad your McCree came back. He was a little scary over there. Again, biggest thing we're looking out for here is if your McCree and Ana reposition, making sure you're able to help them. So again, this is such safe space. They've got no business moving into this mega room. And as we can see, this ball and monkey get absolutely nothing while their backline is getting bladed. So a bit of disconnected play, but this is fine. You're punishing their aggression, or at least your Genji is punishing their aggression because they're getting nothing. You're playing stable and safe. You even covered this entrance, as you saw Winston jump up there, which was really good. And because both their tanks are committing hard, I should say, they're using cooldowns and everything, and they're getting nothing for it. Good stuff. That's a great example of how posturing defensively pays off against an over-aggressive team. Fast forward a little bit if I can. So here's another situation. I mentioned typically on defense, you don't want to posture aggressively most of the time. You want to posture defensively and try to punish overextension and stuff like that. When you have ultimates, and especially when you have this many ultimates, namely big ones like Grab and Shatter, good team play ultimates, you can look to coordinate more aggressive movements because you have more of an excuse to go aggressive, basically. Yes.
You could be holding like part of the choke or something on the right
yeah,
side.
Exactly. When they're making this rotation here, trying to get the high ground for their McCree. I don't know why their Ana's not going high. Same with their Zen. But regardless, when they're making wide rotations like this, typically you don't want to overexpose yourselves in this open space, right? Because they'll just kite into these kind of rooms, play safer, and then punish your overaggression. But when you can warrant that level of overaggression, when you have big ultimates, Grab and Shatter, if you had Nano Blade, stuff like that, you can warrant this overaggression. And you can be the one to call for that as well. Like, hey, go aggressive at the choke. We can look for Shatter and Grab. You probably don't want to beat aggressively, but it's something you technically could do. I'm just saying that because they do have Nano Blade available to them.
I think it's something I need to work on is like hit tab more.
Yeah, true. This is one of the reasons support players have been tasked with like ultimate management on coordinated team play is because they can keep an idea of when the team wants to engage and be the one to facilitate that. So
yeah, like while I'm just skating around there in the mega room with healing aura on, I could be hitting tab and trying to do some math in my head about
exactly
what ultimates they use, what they're going to use.
Ult tracking is it's not an easy task, but if you can get even just a general idea of like when you have the same amount of ultimates or when you have more ultimates than the enemy team that you should be going aggressive in these kind of situations, it can pay off. Blade is countered by Beat. You're appealing for your Ana. Love to see it. I'd like to see you on heal here when you don't need speed. Unless you're speeding Ana away from the target here, heal aura would be better. She naded herself, so she's fine anyway, but she could either avoid saving that defensive nade or keep them topped up if it wasn't enough kind of thing. And you don't really need speed in this situation is basically what I'm saying. Unless your Ana was saying, or you were planning for Ana to like speed back down here or speed over here to get away from Genji, heal aura for these defensive situations would be good. Hard to see exactly what happened with the rest of the team, but I think you were doing your job okay. Let's just look back real quick. What happened after the beat? This is a perfect example of over-aggression after defensive posturing. He obviously just didn't know what was going on back here, but without like anyone with him, this is why you can't just aggress whenever you want to. And then that just gets snowballed. And yeah, your members are sort of like one by one turning back to these tanks, when realistically, your only win condition was to keep these members alive and then win back some space with McCree's damage with any ultimate, or sorry, this McCree's damage and any ultimates you might build up. So, unfortunate disconnect from your team, but I like that your focus was on peeling for your backline, for your Ana specifically. Just a few little mechanical things you could have done differently to make it a bit smoother, but your head was in the right space. Another good thing to practice on Lucio, I know we talked a little bit of communication, but since you are realistically the only one who knows when you're going to amp speed and stuff like that, communicating it can be really helpful. And you don't need to say like, I'm amping speed, push here. You can just say like a target. In this case, like maybe that Winston that you wanted to go on, just like, hey, push Winston, and then you speed the team. Hopefully they react on time, but it's much easier, for example, for your team to react to you saying, push Winston, than it is for them to react to the fact that they're getting a speed boost. Because they need to register that the speed boost is happening, think what they want to do with it.
Anything and just saw a monkey and I was like, hey, it looks overextended. I should run at him.
Yeah, and there will be times where you can punish individuals for overextending. Like, for example, if this Genji goes up here by himself, you can just wall right up and boop him off and just deny any flank he was setting up. But when it comes to things your team can follow up on, communication goes a long way in these situations. Because, yeah, you don't want your team to react just to the fact that the cooldown's being used. You want them to react to the idea that you want to present. And in this case, a target focus.
Come on. Nope.
You weren't punished. But I think this was a bit of a waste of time. If that was someone like, I don't even know, someone less mobile than Ball or Monkey, someone without any cooldowns that can help them, for example, that's a fine boop to go for. But one, you need to be getting there faster. Use your mobility. You were on heal that whole time, sort of like slow walking up to him, lining up the boop, and then you hit the boop, but he just slams back, and then you ran back. Turn on speed,
that was a real,
wall ride.
Golfers walk up to the
exactly.
ball to put it in.
Yeah, turn on speed, tap the wall, get into position. And this just screams lack of experience on Lucio to me. You're not super comfortable with the mobility on the hero, and it's showing a little bit.
Yeah.
But more time will ease that, and try to push your limits. I'm not saying like go into the enemy team like wall riding on the skybox or anything.
Don't worry, there's some inting.
Yeah. But look for opportunities where you can get the most out of your specific hero for those specific situations. Similar to the BAP, like when you're using the window here, like, yeah, the window was fine, but you can get way more just passively by being up here on the high ground. You can get way more as Lucio by using your wall ride more, by using your mobility more, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, you weren't punished, so not too much wrongdoing. But again, in tighter fights and tighter matches, any bit of wasted time should be cleaned up. All right, next fight coming up. Again, this would be a good situation where you could be up here. You'll see Lucio's even like riding the skybox on this map, scouting where the enemy team's going on, and then getting back to the team and then getting ready for the fight. But here, even just like standing up here.
I try to wall up and I fail at it. Right now.
Again, a little bit of comfort, a little bit of extra time. Practice wall riding in the training room if you need to. All that stuff pays off. So here, this is where I would say you should be pushing in, right? Your whole nano blade just went off. I'd imagine some amount of communication came out from your team. This is where you speed boost your tanks and you follow up this Genji. Because yes, you should have more than enough to win this fight with the nano blade, but you should make his job as easy as possible by speeding in members that can support him, by giving him speed himself. And while your attention should still remain a little bit on your backline, your team is making an aggressive play here. So the majority of your focus should be front facing. You can keep tabs on your Anna McCree, make sure they're keeping up with the team, making sure this ball doesn't just roll through and one shot your Ana, anything like that. But speed should be on. You should be with the tanks, that kind of thing. You can turn around 180, see if your Ana's safe, go back and throw a boop out, and then go back with the team if you need to. But again, the biggest part of any aggressive play is going to come like in the first second and a half. And that responds to your speed boost, the first second and a half of speed boost, the first second and a half of nano blade. Because after that second and a half goes by, the enemy team is going to be reacting to whatever's happening, and they're going to be coordinating ways to deal with it. So the less time they have to handle all this overwhelming pressure, the better for you.
Right. So coordinate the first second or so
of any engagement, but as Lucio specifically from your speed boost is going to be the most important. Thank you, Ball, for the extra ult charge after getting that Mega. Oh, no! Okay. I thought you ran out of ammo and you weren't going to get it.
I know. I was like, oh, that's tragic. Oh, he's dead. Okay.
This, another good spot for scouting the enemy. Look at you, wall riding up. Just like dancing a little bit in and out, see where they're, when and where they're coming. Good information to relay to your team. And then position a little safely.
Slinking in the back.
Once you know where they're going, it's fine to fall back. You don't need to like stay here and try to boop them off and get like flashbanged or anything like that. But just getting a little bit of info pre-fight is good. And then at this point, you could, I don't know, go speed the McCree up to the high ground, go sit with your Ana on high ground. Again, just like first point, in case that ball or monkey comes in, you can boop them off. Because you want to start with that defensive positioning and posturing, and then when you've got an excuse to go aggressive, either an ult play, like the Nano Blade, or punishing anything that they're doing, then you can look to go more aggressive and put your attention back to the front. Oh, tragic. And again, this is mainly an awareness thing. Biggest two things that happened, you got booped in by Ball, and you didn't even see him on your screen even after he booped you, from what I saw. And then tried to beat, but then got slammed by the ball at the same time. So basically, this happened because you were not in an ideal position. You were kind of just on point when you could have been with your backline. Harder to dive, easier to peel. And because you weren't paying attention to all potential avenues of attack from the enemy team. I'm guessing this turns into a point cap from them, basing on everything being used right now. But all this cleaned up from you could lead to a fight win. Like, your role as an individual here could have carried this fight by being in a better position, so you're not taken advantage of by this ball, and getting your beat off, like either hitting this ledge or even just slamming on the ground here out once the ball's no longer a threat, denies these high noon kills, maybe keeps McCree alive. Lots of things that could have gone better. So if we just rewind a little bit here to show you, imagine if you were just with Ana during this fight here. With Ana and McCree. Oh, and the sleep even landed on the Genji. And yeah, just a millisecond too late on the beat. Could have been a very different fight.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't want to harp on it too much, but keep in mind, any downtime you're using, you shouldn't just be standing around throwing out left clicks. Think about what is the best positioning to be in for whatever job you're trying to accomplish, whether that's peeling for your backline, whether that's going aggressive with an ult play, or a choke push or something like that.
Yeah,
and then get in
one of my
position
bigger
for it.
problems is positioning. Like, you'll see me like I'm down there throwing out left clicks because I don't really. I'm not thinking about like where the best places should be. Like, if you watch the way I play, and it's kind of, I've been trying to get better at it. I'd be like, oh, I'm in a lull of a fight. I should be getting to high ground or something like that. But like, I'm trying to get better at that. And Lucio is probably, because I'm not as comfortable in the hero, I'm thinking more, probably not thinking about that as much.
Okay.
I think in general, you'll probably see that my positioning, I'm like, even when there's downtime, I'm not thinking about it. I'm just like, twiddling my thumbs, waiting for the next fight to break out.
For sure. And the best question you can ask yourself in order to answer, like, where should I be positioned? What should I be focusing on? Is what is the next fight going to look like? And there's typically two things that need to be answered with that question. Is where, as in, is it going to happen at the choke? Is it going to happen on point? Is it going to be, am I going to get dove on my backline? Stuff like that. And what is going to be used in terms of what heroes are going to be the ones engaging. In this case, the enemy team had diving tanks. You can probably expect the dive tanks to be the ones engaging. Any ultimates that are coming out, i.e. Nano Blade, those are the things you need to be asking yourself. Where and what? Those are the biggest questions that you should be thinking about in between fights. Because if you can answer those two questions, you can be ready for basically anything. Unless teams are using some like crazy strats to throw you off guard, most teams are pretty predictable in ranked. You'll see them coming a certain way, and you can pretty much predict how they're going to engage. If they're rolling out dive tanks over here, and you've got squishy backline members over here, they're probably going to try and jump on them. So being ready for that, knowing what your threats are, and knowing where the threats are going to engage goes a long way. And it's not something you're going to go into your next rank game and have all the answers for, but it's something you should be paying attention every time moving forward. Anytime you've got that downtime, try to remind yourself, okay, what's going to happen next and where's it going to happen?
Right.
Attackers incoming.
All right, we're back on the Baptiste. And we've got an even slower comp, I should say. So I'm glad we're not on Lucio. Not much value out of Lucio for this composition, I would say, in general. A little bit of a scary exposure there, but we're doing okay. Okay, we're stabilizing, it looks like. Lamping yourself to stay alive. Good to see it. You've learned your lesson from that first death.
Yeah.
Okay, overall, not bad. There's a lot I could say in terms of like team play aspects, but from you individually, I think you handled that fairly well. My biggest fear was the way you sort of walked across point to save your McCree, who was walking across point. He was up here against a dive team when the rest of your team was back here. This is 100% his problem. You, as a support player, should never put yourself in a position that can get you killed to save an overextending DPS member, or any overextending member for this case. I don't know what obsession he has over this high ground specifically, but if I were this McCree, or I should say if I were coaching this McCree, and I saw him walking up here while the rest of his team is playing Orisa Hog down on the Mega Pack, I would ask him what he thought he was doing. Realistically, he should be dead within the first 10 seconds of this round starting. You covered that, but it was at expense of your own. It was potentially at the expense of your own life, and that would have been a way worse death than your McCree dying.
True. Now, like, should I question I have here is like, I'm positioned on the high ground in the middle right now. Is that like with the comp that we have with those two people on the right side on that high ground? Like, should I be even touching that high ground in the center?
I think it's fine to start, scout, and poke here, but you don't want to be here when the fight breaks out, because worst case scenario, your team gets split in half. Like, say they push this way, they start pushing your Orisa Ana, and they're back in Mega Room, and then you've got no way back to them, and they've got no way back to you, and you're sort of fighting as two groups.
Right.
Or potentially even three groups if these members stay over here, kind of thing. So
I don't remember what happens this fight, but yeah, let's just watch it out.
For sure. But yeah, biggest thing as a takeaway from that last fight, it didn't happen, thankfully, but you shouldn't be forced to put yourself in a position to save your team members, and that's exactly what cooldowns like Lamp exist for, so you can sort of throw that safety net without exposing yourself. We're going to go back and look at that window real quick, but I want to watch this fight out.
Oh, that's what I was talking about. Bonk, bonk, dead.
Back to back. So bigger than jumping into this platform here was your mid-fight positioning, and we're gonna go back and look at that. So starting this fight off, I'm gonna rewatch this all from third-person POV, I think. So this window is a little bit awkward to me. Number one, the angle of attack that you're enabling is good for fighting on the point, but it's not good for fighting where the actual team members are. Something like a window maybe like this would have been better. If you don't know, you can double tap Q, and it'll change the orientation of your wall. So for example, if you're looking this way, the wall defaults to playing like this, but you can press Q again and it'll put it like this, sort of like the way May wall works if you double tap E.
I know of it. I don't.
Okay, so yeah.
For the sake of aiming it, I don't usually do it that way unless it's like.
And honestly, given how big it is, it kind of covers a lot of mistakes anyway, but this could have been a much more valuable wall if instead of this angle, where you're intending to stay in this room, right? I can tell just based on the window location, you're intending to stay in this room, and you're hoping to be able to shoot these members, but realistically, if you wanted to fight here, you should have put a window that enables as much of that space as possible, and I think the best option for you would have been something like this.
Well, I was trying to position it in a way where, like, if it's at that angle, I can both hit the point and, you know, I can kind of step out and hit.
Yeah, something. Yeah, you're not wrong.
They probably could have been positioned better to use that
maybe just a little bit more forward.
Yeah, but that's my usual like reasoning. Like ever since window was changed to the garage door, so to speak, I've been trying to be like not trying to put it down one angle, but trying to put it down in places where, you know, I can shoot out of both orientations, like, you know, towards the Orisa. And I could be standing in a position to be shooting towards the Zarya as well. That's what I was thinking there.
I think the biggest thing more than anything is that the idea of staying in this room and aggressing here are incompatible. You can't do both.
True. Yeah.
So your Orisa being on point and your Hog being over here leads me to believe that you can be more aggressive on an angle like this because you've got people coming to reinforce that. And this would just, if not outright killing anyone here, it would force them back here or force them back here and then let you reestablish space somewhere else.
True. Because like this isn't helping this window here isn't really helping the Orisa.
Yeah, if your team was all in here, I'd like this a lot more. But yeah, it's very situational, and I understand what you were going for. It's just because of all these different factors, it maybe wasn't the best for the time being. But that is what it is. Let's focus on the mid fight here.
True.
So your team is stabilizing a little bit here. You're down 2 members. This is what scares me the most. Your decision to walk out here and then also like continue walking around here. And this kind of makes me think. I'm curious to get your thought process here. Do you remember what might have been going through your head at this point during the game?
You remember that modem sound? The sound that modems used to make?
Yeah, the dial-up sound.
That's all that's coming through my head right now.
Just static.
I go to that corner for I don't know what reason. If you watched other VODs of me, you would know that that's the corner I die in, and I always go there. I don't know why.
Yeah, we'll bring up a heat map. I agree with you.
20. I should be staying on that mega, but like I don't know. Yeah, maybe I went around that way because like that way I could have more cover to work with, but I mean it probably at the end of the day probably still be the same amount of cover, and I'd have my team would have better sightline on me if I was playing in there. Like like looking at it in hindsight, I don't know why I would go there, and in the heat of the moment I was probably like, oh, this is the furthest back I could be, which means I'm the safest.
Right.
It's probably what was going through my mind. And
fair
as
enough.
we see for sure, it's
Overwatch is a hectic game, and I will give you that it is very hard to keep up with everything during a fight and keep track of everything you're supposed to be doing. The more and more you play, the more and more comfortable you get on individual heroes, individual roles, that'll improve. The biggest thing when it comes to positioning, and specifically mid-fight positioning, like when you're sort of moving back and forth, is keeping track of where the fight's evolving. In this case, majority, it's on point. And what is the safest space you can occupy while still influencing the fight. And maybe you can have more of an influence by peeking out here, by getting better angles on the members in here, for example, and you have the potential to jump up here. It doesn't make it the safest opportunity, though. If the enemy team was all the way back here, if they were playing like a Rhine comp or something and they were all stuffed back here, you can play wherever you want. But the reality is right now they've got really aggressive members that are very mobile and will jump at any opportunity to isolate and delete you, as we are seeing here. So yeah.
He only needed to delete me.
Yeah, where is the safest place that you can influence the fight? And keep asking yourself where the fight's happening. Sometimes it's as easy as looking at where the point is, but it's not always going to be that easy, especially on maps like Payload, for example.
So I should be thinking like, all right, our team is Ball, or is Hog, Orisa. They're probably going to be staying mostly on point, so I should be just like with them on point.
Yeah, exactly.
Behind cover, and like, yeah.
You could make arguments for making like aggression flank plays and stuff like that with like a window play or something, but until you're more comfortable gauging when is a good time to be aggressive, when is a good time to be defensive, it's usually safer to err on the side of caution and play a little safe with your tanks, making sure they're topped up, making sure they're the ones dictating space for you, and then you can follow that up instead of being the one trying to create that space yourself. But eventually you will get to a point where you'll be the one dictating those timings and being the one. I don't know if you watch the Overwatch League, but San Francisco Shock has a Baptise player who's insane at the game, to say the least, and he'll often create like solo flank plays as Baptiste and just throw up a window and kill 3 people out of nowhere. And
yeah, I can't get that fast. I can maybe get like one, but then like I get the yips.
Yeah.
And I just like rip the rest of the shots.
So yeah, there is merit to those kind of plays, but for you at this level for right now, focus on the safest option for yourself and focus on making sure you can maintain that space. This is looking like a bit of a snowball potentially coming through. Oh, wait, the Blade and the High Noon get some good trades. Okay, never mind. Nice. Nice job staying alive there. Your Ana fell, but not much you could have done for her. Maybe a perfectly timed lamp that survives these mines somehow could have helped her, but good repositioning mid-fight. You didn't immediately like jump onto point, or you didn't take yourself out of the fight, which we've seen a couple times. So that was good. All right. You mentioned this was a draw, so I know a bit of spoilers about what's going to happen.
Yep.
And we're back on Lucio. So now, now that we're no longer on defense, you can worry a little bit less about posturing defensively, and they're not even on dive anymore. The biggest threat to you is going to be that Doomfist. So you'll still need to keep track. Small thing. It looked like a bit of miscommunication about where your Ryan actually wanted to go.
I remember saying, let's just speed left or something like that. And then
he had other plans.
And then, and then I sped left and I looked behind like, wait, then they went right.
But yeah, to what I was saying, you don't need to posture defensively the whole time. Like, you don't need to hug your McCree and Ana when you're on offense like this. You need to assess what your threats are. If they were on Ball Winston again, you would need to be keeping track of them and sort of matching their positioning. So for example, or let's not even talk about Ball Winston. They're not in the game. Let's talk about this Doomfist. Doomfist is really the only threat to your backline in this matchup, unless like McCree's on a huge flank or something. But what you should be thinking about as the Lucio player, as the one with utility for your backline, is marking where that Doomfist is going to be approaching from. Think about high grounds he can E off of. Think about flanks he can punch through and stuff like that. And if you don't have eyes on him, trying to scout him out, trying to scout out these potential small flanks is a good idea. But once you do have eyes on him, you want to be there in range of your backline whenever he engages. So to start things off, you don't need to worry too much when your team's all together, when you're trying to make an aggressive play, when you're trying to move through chokes, make rotations, stuff like that. But once the fights start evolving, you need to be keeping tabs on Doomfist. For example, if your tanks go aggressive here and Doomfist was up here, I'd like to see you staying a little bit further back, not just in your tank line, in case he goes in and you can boop him away or something like that.
Right.
Basically, you want to be the buffer between the aggressive or the offensive members of the enemy team and the fragile members of your team. And the same would apply to playing Brigida, or the same would apply to thinking about how you use the lamp as Baptiste or your nade as Ana. You want to keep that as a buffer to keep your fragile core alive while the offensive movements from the enemy team are coming through.
Gotcha.
Okay, looks like we're stabilizing and we've cleared some space. This is good. We can wait for our next engage. Okay, we're actually going left this time. And there goes your threat. Huge speed boost. Rather than... So this was really good, obviously. You got a pick on Doomfist. We immediately sped through trying to find an advantage. We got another kill. I think it was the Reinhardt that died second. And then we snowballed from there. Only thing I would clean up for you is, as Lucio, open spaces are your hell. You have fun on walls, on terrain, on high grounds, on anything where you can use your wall ride and get away to safety in case you get some focus or you get poked out or something. Being in this open space gives you not many options. Sure, there's this thing you can like kick off of, but the way you're playing, the way you sort of flowed through this fight and you started here and you immediately went to this left side, all that did was make you a target.
True, yeah. I mean, I think in my mind I was like, oh, I bet you I could like get to this McCree there in the back left.
Yeah.
But like in hindsight, it definitely seems to be better to like wall rat off the middle section there and try to like boop somebody back into my team.
Yeah, if they're trying to get out this way, you can boop them back in. And even if you are trying to like go solo on McCree or something, I'm not saying do this every time, but it is a play you can make, especially in these advantage states. But still, you should be looking to use your mobility and your wall riding to close the distance. Because if he's standing here and you're just gonna run at him, he's gonna win that duel. Spoiler alert. But if you get a little creative with it, get up on high ground, get above him here, maybe even like take the time to flank behind him, then you'll have an advantage to get the jump on him and isolate him and get some good damage off.
Yeah, I think that's part of my problem when I play too much quick play, because then I don't have respect for DPS players. I'll run at them and be like, give them a little AD spam. They can't.
Yeah.
But, like, you play rank, if they see me for half a second, I'm dead.
You should definitely get in the habit of respecting your opponents, but also if you notice a trend of you being able to get away with more aggression, push that as far as you can. Push your limits to... Okay, goodbye, McCree. Push your limits to whatever you think they might be, and then push them a little bit further to see how much you can get away with. If you get punished every time when you're going aggressive as Lucio, maybe tone it back, but don't start off just never going for anything aggressive, never going for your own plays and stuff like that, because you want to have the biggest impact possible during these games, and you're not going to find out what that is until you test the limits of the enemy team, the enemy DPS, the enemy Hog in this case maybe. I would say the same to DPS players, like they're looking to do solo flank plays and stuff like that. You want to have a big impact over the game, and you can be as aggressive as you want, or I should say you can be as aggressive as you can get away with. This is a perfect example of that aggressive play. Oh, is he gonna die? Good, good, good. But at the end of the day, ultimates are good too.
Yeah.
Looking back at
when
that,
I look back at that, it was like I think that we didn't get that snowball because our tanks ran forward.
Yeah,
while
and
we were
then
still on point, and I don't recall saying anything. I should have been like, "Hey, wait for the healers."
I
We were
mean,
both on point.
From what I saw, they were like here when you were still capping. And sure, I could say you should have communicated that, but realistically, that's a lack of awareness from their part more than anything. And they should understand the time it takes to get from point A to point B before they start fighting and brawling and stuff like that. So not entirely on you. I want to highlight this as a really good example of going aggressive as Lucio. So again, our trigger in this case, the Nano Blade, just like we saw in defense, your focus is primarily front facing. There's no active threats because they're focusing on dealing with this Nano Blade more than anything. They're not trying to go aggressive at this time. There's no flanking McCree. There's no aggressive Echo right now. There's no Hog that's going to hook your Ana. Your Ana and your McCree right now, wherever your McCree, oh, he's up here, they're fine on their own. So this is a perfect time for you to go aggressive, support this Blade. Unfortunately, the beat comes out to peel a lot of it, but you get the kill on the McCree. But then by the time we get back, they've got a grab. So you made the right play. It's just they had a pretty big ultimate advantage, and oh, actually both your tanks died with ults. That's pretty tragic.
Oof. Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to go back in and look at what your tanks could have done better, but I think you played that last fight pretty well there. Any questions from this map before I close out?
I think mostly it was just like for me on like Baptiste in some places, like I just like I think I'm in the right place, but I never like know if I'm in the right place, and then I'm just unsure of myself, like where I'm standing and where I should be standing.
Mm-hmm. And again, this is going to be that checkbox of when and where and what is going to happen during the next team fight, and then where can you position to influence that team fight while still remaining safe. That should be your biggest priority. Once you are guaranteed to be safe, then you can look for more aggressive options, whether that's flank plays or pushing up with your team and stuff like that. But you need to start with the baseline of being safe, keeping your healing and damage uptime as high as possible during a team fight, and all that stuff. So yeah, the very basics and you can translate this to any map. It doesn't need to be Volskaya, obviously. Just where's the team fight happening or going to happen, and where can I be to influence that team fight? They seemingly basic questions.
Question to ask myself, yeah.
They're seemingly basic questions, but they can get really complicated really quickly, depending on the map, depending on the team compositions and all that stuff. But,
yeah, definitely.
So yeah.
Overall, do you think I was picking like the right? I mean, like, do you feel like in that composition with our team, for the most part, was I picking the right supports to kind of go along with that, or is it just like at this level it doesn't matter as much?
I would say at most levels in ranked, composition isn't going to be the thing holding you back, but you can still squeeze more valuable. So you can get either more individual value or you can push the team comp a little bit further. So for example, the Ana Bap combo, I wouldn't recommend running this, but it's also not going to be what holds you back. So you could pick heroes, say your teammate locks Ana or Bap, you could pick heroes like Brig or Zen or Lucio that complement them better, but it's not going to be like the difference maker in every single one of your games. If this was coordinated play, if we're playing an Overwatch league, I would say never run this backline. But obviously that isn't the case. And more than anything, individual performance and the times you can coordinate with your team are going to be the difference makers. It's just a matter of what kind of tools you're bringing to the fight. So this is a bit of an overload on healing and an underload. I don't know if that's a word. You're a bit short on utility, where you could bring things like I said, like Brig, like Zen, like Lucio to complement it more. But again, that's not what's going to hold you back in these games, and you shouldn't feel forced to pick things that you feel like you quote-unquote need, when realistically you should be focusing on your performance. The only exception to that, I might say, is having an underwhelming amount of healing. that can sometimes be an issue, especially in ranked. Like having like a Lucio Zen backline, it can work.
Yeah,
It's a great.
I think I've identified, like, for the most part, like if I see, like, if someone else is picking Zen, I'm not going to go ahead and pick Lucio or something along those lines.
Yeah.
I think I recognize that, like, whoever I'm playing with is like has high heals or has high utility, and I should pick the opposite.
For
But
sure.
but then we get into like this point here where it's like, okay, well, I think that probably playing Lucio is going to be better. Like, but I'm not super good at Lucio. Like, is that like, I feel like that might be a problem. Like, is that, should I just be picking Baptiste because I'm better at Baptiste, or should I be picking Lucio because Lucio is better for the team comp? Like, I think
And
that,
end of the day, it'll come down to you. And
yeah,
like I said, more important than raw composition and like analysis of what might make the best composition on paper is your performance. If you can't perform to the same level on X hero as you can Y hero, then it might not make sense, even though it makes more sense for the composition.